Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you all to this very important meeting today, Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019, in the City of Portsmouth, City Council Chambers. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we will now have roll call. Please indicate your presence electronically. Six members of the Planning Commission are present.
Commissioners, before you are the minutes of the June 4th, 2019 public hearing. If there aren't any changes, we are in need of a motion. Commissioner Youngblood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Commissioner G.
I second that motion.
Commissioners, we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve the June the 4th, 2019 minutes, and you will be voting electronically. The minutes are approved 6-0. Announcements of future meetings and conferences. Please note that our next scheduled work session is Tuesday, August the 6th, 2019 at 12:30 p.m., 6th floor conference room, followed by public hearing at 1:30 p.m., City Council Chamber. Items reviewed today will be presented to City Council for action at their August the 13th or August the 27th public hearing, or as otherwise noted. Planning Commission rules limit a speaker up to 5 minutes to speak. We also ask that everyone please silence your cell phones at this time if you have not already done so. Our first item, UP-19-09 Parkview. Robert C. Barkley IV, Esquire, with Cooper, Spong, and Davis, on behalf of ABC Link VA, Inc., requests a use permit for an adult daycare center at 230 Fort Lane, 921 and 927 Crawford Parkway, and 231 Hatton Street. The properties are zoned Historic Limited Office, HLO. The properties are designated on the future land use map in the city's comprehensive plan for high-density, single-family development, as well as institutional public use. The properties are further described as tax map 26, parcels 1, 83, 85, and 87. Our staff coordinator is Stacy Porter. Would the representative for this item please come forward and present your case?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Robert Barclay. My business address is 200 High Street, Suite 500, Portsmouth, Virginia, 23704. And I'm here today on behalf of the property owner and the actual operator of the building, which is First Care Corporation. I just would like to note one thing. I believe in the introduction, the Secretary mentioned 921 Crawford Street. Actually, that property is not included. It was put in the ad, but in fact, it's three properties: 927, the Fort Lane property, and the Hatton Street property. And what we're here today to do is to request a conditional use permit to operate an adult daycare facility. The property has been operated by First Care Corporation and its predecessors since the 1970s. In the late 1970s, these properties were used as a residential care facility for mentally disabled people and people that had substance abuse issues. That went on for about, those activities went on there for about 15 years. Or more, and then at a later date they decided to change over to a less intensive use, which is just adult daycare for mentally disabled persons. And there's a range of activities that are provided to the clients of this facility. I have Ms. Tamara Coleman here from First Care, and I'm going to have her come up in a minute, and she can provide some more details about the day-to-day operations of the facilities. The applicants had an opportunity to review all the conditions that the planning staff has requested, and those were all acceptable. And that includes the construction of a new parking lot on one of the vacant parcels that's part of the land that's involved in this. And so after that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have, and then I'm going to call Ms. Coleman up here, and she can kind of give you details about operations.
Mr. Barkley, just so I have a clear understanding, it's 230 Fort Lane, 927 Crawford Parkway, and 231 Hatton?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Barkley? Thank you, sir.
Okay, if I could, I previously signed up Ms. Coleman. I'd like to call her up here and have her say a few words to you as well.
I'll call her
Okay,
out.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a continued public hearing from our last meeting. I do have one registered speaker with Tamara Coleman. Please come forward, state your name and your address. You'll be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Tamara Coleman, and my personal living address is 5 Dogwood Avenue, Portsmouth, Virginia. But I'm here representing the properties at 231 Hatton Street, 927 Crawford Parkway, and 230 Fort Lane. We are a day support program for individuals with autism, intellectual disability, and cerebral palsy. We currently serve 43 individuals amongst the 3 locations. We have 15 staff who help support the individuals. The point of the program is to provide the individuals with daily living skills, communication skills, pro-social skills, so that they can generalize those skills out into their living environment. They come there, our hours of operation are from 9 to 4, Monday through Friday. No one sleeps at the property. That is not what we do there. When they're there, they go out in the community. They really volunteer in the community. They frequent stores, everyday locations, just like you and I would. Like I said, we have 15 staff, a combination of full-time and part-time, and I'm there as well. Have any questions?
Commissioners, are there any questions for Ms. Coleman? Commissioner Youngblood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Coleman, my understanding is that in the past, maybe not the recent past, but in the past, this was a 24-hour-a-day operation. Is that correct?
It was a 24-hour group home.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And how long ago did that change?
I believe that changed in 2010.
Okay. And so what you're doing now, or what you're proposing now, would be a lesser presence. I mean, it was 24 hours a day. Now it sounds like it's going to be about 8 hours a day.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, are there any additional questions of Ms. Coleman? Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone here who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address UP-1909, you may come forward. At this time, state your name and your address, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Coleman, I mean, not Ms. Coleman, Ms. Porter, did you get any comments from the letters that you sent out? Because I know that you send out notices to all the neighboring property owners.
I did send letters to the neighboring properties as well as the 2 civic leagues in the vicinity. I understand that the applicant did go to visit West Parkview and Parkview Civic Leagues. I did not get any feedback from anyone surrounding the areas, but I didn't know if you wanted to ask the attorney for the applicant concerning the meetings at the Civic League.
No, this would be sufficient. I just wanted to know if the planning department had gotten any response back, but thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Commissioners, are there any additional questions or concerns? Commissioners, we are in need of a motion for UP-19-09 Parkview. Commissioner Thaxton.
I'd like to make a motion, approval of UP-19-09 with conditions.
Commissioners, we have a motion. We need a second. Commissioner Ricks.
I move the second motion.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve UP-19-09 with conditions. You will be voting electronically. This item is approved 6-0. Our next item, UP-19-10 Port Norfolk. Susan Slater is requesting a use permit to operate a microbrewery at 346 Broad Street. The property is owned by Port Norfolk Properties LLC, William C. Creasy, and is located in the historic limited business HLB zoning district. The future land use map is in the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan, designates this property for commercial uses and is further described as tax map 144, parcel 76. Staff coordinator is Jonathan Hartley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, we recently, compliments of one of the commissioners, discovered that we had a problem with the mailing to the adjoining property owners. The adjoining owners were not notified, as is required by the city ordinance and state code, and therefore, while we've advertised it for public hearing and you should open the hearing, I would suggest that you continue the hearing and we will re-advertise the item for your August agenda.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Mr. Hartley? If there are no objections, Commissioners, we will defer UP 19-010, but we will open the public hearing and have it to remain open until our August meeting. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will the applicant or representative for this application come forward and present your application at this time?
Hi, I'm Chris Slater. My wife and I, Susan Slater, she's not here. We are the applicants for this microbrewery. We live at 226 Maryland Avenue. And we're just looking for, we've been walking around the neighborhood and enjoying the wonderful place that Port Norfolk is for 15 years now. And for the majority of the time that I've been there, this space has been vacant for at least 10 years. At one point, it was Chubby's Bar, and then it became a catering place. When I first moved into the neighborhood, it was a catering, and then it went out, and it's been vacant for a very long time. So my wife and I've been brewing for about 10 years, and she's been brewing with me for about 6. And we just thought it'd be a great opportunity to set up a neighborhood space where our neighbors, who are all wonderful people, and we've been chatting with a lot of them, can get together and just have a nice little meeting spot that has a low barrier of entry, be family friendly, pet friendly, and we want to have a space where people who are out walking can stop in and have a moment, or if they were out on like a bike ride or something like that, they could also come by there and just have a place to stop, a place to land, and talk with the neighbors, in a nice, friendly way, and have a comfortable environment where they don't feel like they're being forced to move in or out of a space because a table becomes available or whatever. So we're just trying to open up a nice little neighborhood section, a nice little space, and give a little bit of revitalization down to our Port Norfolk area. We were looking at opening a very small microbrewery. It's between 3 and 8 barrels will be our capacity, which would put us about 500 barrels to 1,000 barrels a year, depending on our output and consumption, of course. We're trying to keep it friendly to the churches and the neighbors, closing down at 10 o'clock, last call 9:30, and not being open during the church service hours to keep the parking available for them. So we're trying to keep our neighbors in mind, and there's a lot of space down there. There's a lot of parking spaces down there on the side streets and around there, but it's a beautiful little area. It just needs some people to come in there and a reason to stop into Port Norfolk. We used to have when I first moved in, we had the people at the bakery. One of the reasons I moved into the neighborhood was because there was a bakery at the end of the street and a bookstore and all these other really cool places, a coffee shop. And now because of the bypass, we lost a lot of that down there. So I'm trying to just make a point, to make a reason to get to Port Norfolk, and also just to serve our neighborhood. I mean, I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for 20 years, and I was taught how to brew by another teacher. And so it's very friendly to me. It's what I like. It's what I do in my spare time when I'm not with my 3 kids. This is one of my pastimes, my hobbies, and I just like to turn it into a small business that my wife will run. I'll continue teaching, but she'll be running the business, and we'll make some wonderful craft brews for our Portsmouth neighbors. I think that's all I have.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Mr. Slater? Commissioner G.
Mr. Slater, first let me say thank you for your service to our kids as a parent. That's always appreciated, especially to have stuck it out that long. I don't know how I'm going to make it to 18 years with the 2 I have, because they're getting out as soon as they hit 18. But also, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you, to see that you're a member of that community and choosing to put your business there, looks like less than 2 blocks from your home. Mm-hmm. That says a lot. And I hope more people take your lead and follow it as an example, because that's what makes communities strong. I frequent that area. I mean, there's great character there, and I think this would be a great addition. And I love the fact that you talked about having the discussion with your neighbors, with the churches, with those other parts of that community. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you. This is what we need more of in the city, is these type of businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, are there any additional questions for Mr. Slater? Commissioner Youngblood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed when I went over to look at the property a couple days ago that there's an asphalt parking lot about 50 yards west of the property you're talking about, and it appears to be owned by one of the local churches.
Yes, there's one on each side.
Yeah. Have you talked to those churches about the possibility of using their parking lots for overflow?
Not yet. No, we're new to this. I'm a teacher. My wife is she works for a computer company. We're working through the process. We didn't want to do those extra to go into the church and to do that until we were assured that, or had some sort of idea of which way this was going to go. So after this meeting, depending on how this went, because we have talked to some of our neighbors, but I'm sure there are other people that have differing opinions, and we'll see how they feel about it. But that is something that we have in our books and our plans, is to approach the one remaining church that's open. The other church at the other end has recently closed, but the church towards the rec center, we have not gone in and approached them yet. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, are there any additional questions to Mr. Slater? There be none. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-19-10. I do have several speakers. As I call your name, would you please come forward? The first speaker is Paula Gilley Sawyer.
Good evening, Chairman Williams, Commissioners. Thank you for having us at this time. I am not against the microbrewery. We honor to have businesses come not only to our neighborhood in Port Norfolk, but also to Portsmouth as a whole. However, the particular spot that 1910 has asked to go must park on the street. There is parking in the back for employees, up to maybe 5-6 cars. There's also apartments in the back. There are 8 condos on the corner, 1 house, the building itself, another house which is being restored to be flipped, church parking lot, and a house, and then the Broad Street Church. Broad Street Methodist Church is for sale, so I don't know that that could be guaranteed parking for them. The Baptist Church up a block, I don't know how they would go as far as parking for the brewery. But I do realize, and would like for you to realize, that I don't live on that street. I am just a member of the community. We do want business, but on that particular place, there are 2 parking spaces. That's it. There are numerous garage apartments, 1 apartment attached to the back of the shopping center, 8 condos on the corner, the 1 house, the shopping center. Across the street, there are 7 apartments above what would be the salon, the stove, going down Detroit. So I would ask that you would please take into consideration that we do not have parking. Also, I'd like to bring up how their waste would be. I don't know how that would come. As far as a brewery, we have an enormous amount of flies in our neighborhood. I don't know if that would even be a factor, but I also know that at this point, I would have liked to have seen maybe participation to come to the Civic League to speak to us, or to at least go around to the neighbors and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or like you said, for the letter to go out to the neighbors. I thank you for your time, and I really would like for you to put some deep thought into this, because they're going to be open till 10. When you have a small child or you're elderly and you're carrying groceries, because on the opposite side, we have no driveways on that particular block. They do have to park and carry. So, please look into that. We don't know what their hours, we don't know if they're going to advertise for outside of the city, to the city, or is it just for Port Norfolk itself. We don't know how much, the 8, how many that actually serves as a person, so we don't know what the traffic would be. But please look into this before you make your final decision. Thank you very much.
Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Gilley Sawyer? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Chuck Beecher.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and other members of the commission, and thanks for your opportunity to speak. My name is Chuck Beeler, and I live at 347 Broad Street, which is directly across from the property under this application. I'd like to begin by saying I'm not opposed to the brewery whatsoever. It's good to hear Mr. Slater talk about the neighborhood, because he described it perfectly, and we've always felt like Port Norfolk has every bit of the potential to kind of be Portsmouth's answer to Ghent. The character of the historic homes, we have fantastic neighbors. It's just a really great community. The only concern that I'd like to express is, and Paula had mentioned, the parking situation. As you know, we're a historic district. Just like with Old Town, we don't really have off-street parking abilities, no driveways. Due to the historic nature and the codes in our neighborhood, we can't do curb cuts to install driveways, even if we do have room for them. So we do park on the street, the vast majority of the neighborhood. And already the 300 block, it is kind of a little business district, if you're not that familiar with it. So we do already have quite a bit of parking on the street outside of just the residents alone. The hair salon that is directly adjacent to the property on the same side of the street, especially on the evenings and the weekend, they can have anywhere from 10 to 20 cars, just themselves, between employees and their customers. So when it does come to things like Paula mentioned, weekends is when we do everything that we need to get out and do, because we're working all week. So whether it's home improvement, shopping, grocery shopping, that kind of thing, it's just, we all know how popular these breweries have become, and when we've gone to places, whether it be O'Connor's over in Norfolk or Smartmouth, we've literally driven blocks to try and find a place to park. And that's my only concern, is that, if we do come home in the evening or on the weekend, are we really going to have to park 2-3 blocks away from home? Hopefully not, but it's just really much a concern. We do have the 2 parking lots that were mentioned. My understanding is the Methodist Church has actually sold, and closing is pending on that. However, typically those lots are only filled during the hours of worship. Same with the Baptist Church, 1 block in the opposite direction. So I think it's a great idea to maybe to reach out to them and see if those parking lots could be used for the business. That would be fantastic. It would solve all of our problems. But we definitely just would like to encourage more thought behind the parking situation. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Mr. Beeler? There being none, thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Mr. Matt Lopio. And I probably mispronounced your name. Would you please state your name again and your address for the record?
Hi, I'm Matt Globke, and I live at 347 Broad Street. Thank you for your time today, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Beeler is my husband, and he covered all of our concerns, actually, with the exception of waste. And Paula covered that. So we're just concerned about the smell and the parking. We just wanted some assurances from the business owner that, these will be addressed, and from this this committee, that our parking concerns will be addressed as well. That's it.
Any questions? Any questions for Mr. Glipke? Hope I got that right. There being none.
This is not a new problem.
There being none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-19-10. If there's anyone who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, this item the public hearing will be held open until our next Planning Commission meeting, which is scheduled for August the 6th.
Commissioners, we will continue item UP 19-010-10 and defer it until our August meeting.
Mr. Chairman, you'll need a motion to do that.
Okay. The chair's in need of a motion. Commissioner Youngblood.
Thank you, sir. I make a motion that we continue this item until the August Planning Commission meeting.
Commissioner G.
I second that motion.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a motion and a second to defer this item till our August the 6th meeting, and you will be voting electronically. This item is deferred to our August the 6th meeting with a vote of 6-0. Our next item, UP-19-12, Paradise Creek Industrial Corridor. Stephen E. Heretic, on behalf of PER Properties, PER Properties, is requesting to amend a use permit UP 15-05 approved in June 2015 to operate a concrete processing facility. Included the use permit of portable stone crushing equipment at 3991 Elm Avenue. The amendment requested is to eliminate the screening requirement to be installed on the southern boundary of the property, items 3F of Resolution R-15-14, from the conditions approved by City Council. The property is designated for heavy industrial uses on the city's comprehensive plan's generalized future land use map, and is also described as tax map 387, parcel 10. At this time, will the applicant or representative for this application please come forward and present your application at this time? No applicant?
Mr. Chairman, would you like to have staff make a brief presentation on this
I
item?
would, Mr. Baldwin.
As the Secretary just read to you, this is really a request to eliminate one of the conditions that was approved in 2015 when a use permit was originally approved for the concrete processing facility. Essentially, there was, I'm going to kind of jump through, essentially, where the red bar is across on the southern boundary of the property, there had been a condition that area be screened because that area is now being used as part of the wood, sorry, I'm going from memory, an EPA cleanup site of the wood industry site. The EPA has indicated, and you have a copy of the letter, that area cannot be used for any kind of planting. And because of that, PER, through Mr. Heretic, has asked that that condition be removed from the conditions. And it just as kind of a footnote, you'll note that the conditions in your packet include all of the conditions, with the one they're requesting be struck, actually struck, so that we have a record, a good record of all of the conditions that continue with this application. So with that, I'll try to answer any questions. That's a real thumbnail sketch of what the issue is here. But
Commissioner Youngblood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hartley, if I'm going to try and state this in a broad way, and please correct me. We approved this with some conditions that we thought made sense back in 2015 based on our guidelines. And now the Federal Environmental Protection Agency is telling us that we cannot do that. Is that correct?
at the location selected by the applicant, yes.
Right. And furthermore, the requirements that we laid out were based on our code, and the code was presupposing that we were going to screen something that was unsightly from the rest of the neighborhood. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How would you describe the surrounding neighbors and their environment?
This is an industrial site. It's surrounded by industrial uses. The exception to that, quite frankly, is the Jordan Bridge, which is elevated, and actually the photograph on the screen right now gives you an idea of what the site looks like. But that is from a bridge that goes over essentially over the site, and I'm not sure what the elevation is at that point, but it's a virtually impossible site to screen.
So our screening requirement is really kind of, I hate to use the word foolish, but we're screening it for no really good reason except that the code said so, correct?
There is no specific reason to screen this site other than the fact that the ordinance says so.
Okay, sir. And so
I think I said it a different way, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah. So in my mind, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, I would think that the federal regulations take precedent over our local zoning. That would make sense in my mind.
Well, federal regulations would. This is the manager of the Superfund site saying it's an inappropriate location for any kind of vegetative plantings.
Okay. Well,
So,
thank you, sir.
yeah.
Commissioners, any additional questions for Mr. Hartley? There be none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-19-12. If there's anyone here who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, we are now in need of a motion for UP-19-12.
Got technical difficulties. We're going to do a roll call vote. We need a motion first.
Well, we need a motion first. Is there a motion? Commissioner Thaxton.
Go ahead. It just went
It went
down.
out.
It went out, so just.
I'll make the motion, yes.
Okay.
To accept.
Okay.
UP-19-12. Is there a second?
UP-19-12, to be specific.
Commissioner Ricks seconds that motion.
Yes.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second, and as I call your name, please respond with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Yes.
Commissioner G?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Thaxton? Commissioner Ricks? This item is approved by a vote of 6-0.
Madam Secretary, I believe that concludes our agenda for today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We do have one additional item that we need to add, and I think one of the Planning Department employees has 20 years of service.
Yay!
Ms. Porter?
It's sport time.
We'd love for you to take a picture with the director. Sure. Oh, sure. I'd love to be in a picture. Wait a second.
You know that Bob Baldwin lost all the hair.
Yeah, that's nice.
Commissioners, is there any further business we need to discuss this afternoon? Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, just a couple things on the UP 19-12, the Paradise Creek application just approved. Just want to make sure everyone's aware that City Council requested that item will be expedited, and it will go to the City Council for public hearing on the 9th, so next Tuesday. Also mentioned on the UP 19-10, the Port Norfolk application that will be coming back to the Planning Commission in August. We will completely re-advertise as if it's new. We will also put that on an accelerated schedule so that it will get back on the same schedule through City Council would have been at had it been acted on today.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Commissioners, any additional questions for Mr. Baldwin? There being none, this meeting is now adjourned.